Open this meeting of the Oconee County Planning Commission, March 19th, 2018. Call it to order. Our first agenda item would be invocation by County Chaplain.
Pray if you like. Do your business. Order and harmony and
Amen. Okay, Tom, would you like to lead us in the pledge, please?
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, y'all have a copy of the minutes of the last meeting? Dare I hear a motion to approve the minutes for March 5th, 2018?
So moved.
There is one change, as well at the top of page 2. Second sentence, it says standpoint as well. I think we just need one as well there.
It's just given there for emphasis.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Here we go.
Do we still need a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Staff update?
Public comment, sir. Did you want to do that?
Oh, okay, we'll do public comment then. Mr. Mike Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Mike Smith, and I come before you today as a private citizen to comment about the comprehensive plan and the selection of stakeholders. I think most people agree that the present comprehensive plan is too long for it to be useful as a guidance tool. If I'm correct, there are 9 elements that the plan must contain, but nowhere in the Comprehensive Planning Act of '94 does it say how many pages the plan must contain. For any plan to be useful, it must be concise with information that the user needs and is easily retrievable. The current comprehensive plan has about 250 pages, and if I were to ask for a show of hands of who has read it, I think the only person who could raise his hand would probably be Adam. I've tried, and I only last about 4 or 5 pages before I give up. Of the parts I've read, I'm most interested in the goals subsection. So how do you determine how long the plan should be? This slide, the data I got from the internet, which we all know may have some accuracy questions, provides a starting reference point for document length. I've chosen some counties and a city with similar populations, but they're all in the upstate area. So after viewing this data, I'll be bold enough to suggest that the comprehensive plan should be reduced to a median number of about 75 pages. Use bullet points to list the major points or goals under a topic with about a 3 or 4 page sentence introduction and a 2-sentence conclusion. I also suggest that the county finance study Destination Oconee be mined or reviewed for some of its suggestions and then dovetailed into the appropriate section of the revised comprehensive plan. You can blank the slide. Regardless of the length of the comprehensive plan, the overarching question is this: will the revised comprehensive plan be used as a blueprint or guidance for the future? Or is it just going to be another government study that goes on the shelf? About stakeholders, perhaps a way of dealing with who to invite is to do the opposite of the traditional method. Rather than the county inviting specific groups to participate, perhaps you might try this approach. publicized to the public, inviting recognized groups that want to participate as a stakeholder to come forward. Using this approach, the chance of the county being criticized will be greatly reduced for not inviting such and such group. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone has any discussion or comment about his? All right, do staff update.
Certainly. I went and relayed the message to the Ag Board, or Mrs. McPhail actually relayed the message to the Agriculture Advisory Board to begin working on the comprehensive plan. We kind of spoke about it a bit, kind of gave them the update on to what the comprehensive plan is, the ag element and things of that nature. So they are prepared and more than willing to work on the agricultural element for y'all. That's what I got.
Okay, item number 7, discussion on 2020 comprehensive plan. Adam?
I believe tonight would be a good night to ascertain whether we are going to hire a consultant or use staff to update the 2020 comprehensive plan. And as Mr. Kisker and all of y'all have pointed out before, even though we have 17 and a half months, it's not really that long a time. So the sooner we can ascertain who's going to do it, then we can start actually doing the plan. So in your backup material is about a 10-page document from Alta Planning that they sent us, kind of tailored a little proposal for us, as well as my 1 page of what it probably would cost per meeting to do the comprehensive plan. And I really padded my numbers, like severely padded my numbers, just because I hate nickel and diming people. If we were to ask someone for $10,000, I hate to go back to them the next month and say, hey, we need another $5,000, another $2,000. That to me is just annoying. So I padded the numbers on my proposal, and we could work out how many meetings we could have based upon a budget you all came up with, if that's the direction you wanted to go. But first question is, who's doing the plan?
These numbers are if the staff does the plan? Is that what you're saying?
This one right, not there, sorry. That right there, yes, that's if we were to do it. I kind of gave a little assumption as to how many people it would take, how many hours, various costs related to it. The most amount of cost is actually doing something with any data we come up with. So if we have a meeting with one person or a meeting with 100 people, something needs to get done with the data that's generated from there. And that'll take, a day to actually do something with those numbers, not counting actually putting the plan together. Actually, something else that I learned recently is that a lot of the comprehensive plan meetings for the 2010 were tied in with the initial zoning, when we first got zoning. So it was my understanding that some of those meetings were kind of dual purpose, zoning and comprehensive plan,
So we wouldn't
sometimes.
have to have as many meetings.
Perhaps that's correct. We wouldn't have to have, what the estimate that I've been given, 30 to 40, and that's been definitely not, no one said that's definitely how many we've had, but based upon the low end numbers and the high end numbers, probably 20. That's kind of a spitball number there, as to how many were had. That doesn't mean we have to have 20. It just means
Is there something that says we have to have so many per district or?
Nope, nothing at all. It just gives us enough rope to trip ourselves up with. That's what it does. It says you can do as little as you want to, but in the future it could come back at us if we don't at least attempt to do enough. So I'm gonna err, just because I'm a planner, that's my thing, I'm gonna say we should go extreme on it, but that's why you guys are here to stop me from doing it.
So you've estimated just approximately 25 to 26,000 to do the meetings, somewhere in that ballpark.
Depending on how many we want to say, if either we
At
want
20
to,
meetings.
if staff does it, and we say, if you gave me a list of stakeholders, or if we went like with Mr. Smith just mentioned, and doing an invite out to see who wants to be involved, that would kind of give a number. I still think we need to go to each zoning district, voting district at least once. There's 5 voting districts, that's 5 meetings. I still think that's probably the bare minimum of what we need to do, and to go out there. We can have very zoning or comp plan specific meetings here, of course, and put out advertising, things like that. But I really do think at the bare minimum, we need to go at least once out into the community. That way we say, hey, we went to the people, we didn't expect people to come to us.
Yeah, but if we go out in the districts, like Walhalla District, we got Walhalla, and then we got all the way up in Mountain Rest. And then in Westminster, we've got the town, and then we've got all the way into Long Creek. I mean, if we're gonna have, in those two particular, we'd need one in each area, so we need two in those districts.
And that, if we figure out if I'm doing it or if a consultant is doing it, then I would take we could work that out after the fact. But really, the first bridge we have to cross is who's doing it. Because if Alta's gonna do it, they'll bring a level of professional expertise that I would probably follow. So if they say, we have to go to the 3 different towns, we'll go to 3 different towns. If they say one, we'll go to one.
Just say we vote to get Alta to do it, can we require them not to make it 240 pages? Can we require them to cut
To do
this
more,
thing in
you'd like to
half?
have a larger comp plan, sir?
No,
Certainly.
have a smaller. To try to get the thing half of what we've got now.
We could, it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, to make it shorter is better. Yeah, I'm with you on that. To say a specific page length that they have to either shoehorn or stretch out a number of pages that, maybe, yeah. I mean, the number of pages, if it has stuff in it, if they put a bunch of maps and pictures in it and it's the same amount of pages, I mean, pages kind of seem like I think it's too long. I'm with you all.
There's
It's
just
too
so
long.
much information, and I'm like Mr. Smith, after about 10, 15 pages, you're going, I don't wanna read it no more, cause it's all the same just about it, and it gives you a bunch of stuff that don't even need to be in there.
We don't need 10 pages on the history of Oconee County in the historical section. I completely on board with that. We can ask them to make it shorter, certainly, and you can, of course, if you wanna say a maximum number of pages, that's something you, of course, are welcome to say it. I mean, you all write in the check, so if that's what you
I
wanna do.
personally feel like our staff would do a better job knowing our county better than these people do. Just, that's my personal opinion.
In 2010, when they did the comprehensive plan meetings before, what kind of attendance did they have?
That's a great question. I believe the meetings that probably were done in conjunction with getting zoning on board probably were very well attended, but probably because of the zoning issues. I can't speak with any level of knowledge on any other ones. Perhaps our local historian could mention.
Go ahead, Tom.
Tom Markovich for the record. First, there must be some confusion over this. We already had zoning before the 2010 comprehensive plan now. There may have been some side issues with zoning that came back up, but they weren't actually going on at the same time. Of all the meetings that we had, most of the meetings occurred here as a regular, just like one of the, every time the planning commission met, I mean, there was 2 meetings each month. At least one of them would have been dedicated to doing comprehensive plan. But sometimes it would come up at all of them. There were only, the last time that I know of, we had 2 meetings in Salem, one in Mountain Rest, one in Fairplay. And those meetings were all attended very well. Previous to that, there were meetings in other areas, other districts in which nobody showed up. And so, and that meant I know for instance, down in Ravenel, down in that area, nobody came to that. And then I wasn't really sure about Westminster, but like I said, I do know that Fairplay, Salem, and Mountain Rest were all well attended. So that's about it.
If I may, could the zoning been related to the traditional rural development, rezonings from up in like Long Creek and the agricultural rezonings? Exactly. Could that have been, so it would have been the initial zoning, it would have been incidences where large areas were being zoned, such as up in Long Creek with the traditional rural and down towards the southern part of the county where they did the agricultural zoning. So that's, to clarify, see, that's good. So,
For the record, have you received any inquiries from the general public or any potential stakeholder
parties about when meetings are gonna start or about the comprehensive plan? Have you received anything from outside this room, anybody asking any questions about the comprehensive plan?
Not that I haven't initiated, no.
Do you have someone that you could call on as a consultant without having to call this firm to do the whole thing? Is there someone that you could consult if there was things that the staff had questions on? If the staff did the update?
As far as how we did it and how we went about doing it, we could put out I don't know what the amount of money is, we could just pay someone without getting into like a public request for proposal is. I think it's probably $2,000 or so, or to do an RFP.
They're professional, you still have 25,000.
Okay, so up to $25,000 without an RFP? All right, so, I haven't looked for anyone, just because Alta happens to be our pre-approved, like, we can just go to them one, so that was the low-hanging fruit for me to pick someone. We could start shopping it around, certainly. I believe Mrs. McPhail was gonna get in touch with, Mr. Hunia, who used to be the councilman here for a while, because he was involved here for a long time. But as far as I could probably use the COG, Council of Governments, but everyone costs money. I mean, nothing's free.
But you feel like you have the resources to do this if we decide to go with the staff?
If you tell me to do it, I'll do it, yeah. I think that it's a 10-year plan for the county that has previously been underused because of the way it was it just hasn't been utilized for any number of reasons. I think a consultant could probably do it better than I could. I could do it, yes.
So we're having a meeting with county council next week, and the big question that I have is like was mentioned by Mr. Smith, is this gonna be a document seemingly like it's been, that is stuck on a shelf after it's been done? Or does this council actually wanna use it moving forward into the future? And I don't think, if it's just gonna be stuck on a shelf, then no, we don't need to spend a lot of money on it. But if it is gonna be something, in my opinion, we are in a population explosion here in Oconee County. And if we are going to get a handle on the next 20 years, the next 2 years we need to get it right. I looked back, actually read this, cover to cover. And and there were things in here that really interested me in that the last group of councils hadn't gone through some of these goals to even address. And so I think that that's going to be where we need to ask next week is how serious are we going to be about planning for the future? And I think that'll help us determine, do we need to pay the experts or do we just want to put some numbers down so we can satisfy the law?
All right, from staff's point of view, if we wait till our next meeting, get some questions answered at this workshop on the 29th, will we still have plenty of time to do this if we decide at that point we're gonna do it in-house?
I mean, it would just be, 2 weeks less? So, I mean, it's 2 weeks is,
Do we have adequate staff to get the information compiled and get it done, and then staff do their daily jobs as well?
if I'm asked to do the comp plan, if the planning staff's asked to do the comp plan, we can do it. I mean, I'm not gonna say that we're incapable of doing it. It's the getting it done versus getting it done right and getting it done to the best possible level. As long as I'm funded for it, I can. It's not gonna be, if we do, let's say 20 meetings, what does that come to? About $30,000? Based upon my estimate, the 1,200 a meeting, it's about, I know Mr. Gramley knows it in his head already, cause he's a
Right in that
calculator.
ballpark.
How much, 20 meetings is times 1250 is, say it's 30 grand, cause I'm terrible with math.
25.
25 grand. It still need 25 grand. Like that, I mean, that's what it comes to. I can't even start, without the first dollar. I can't advertise the first $30 advertisement without any additional funding. So, if you wanna wait until next Thursday, and are all you all available to come to the meeting next Thursday? I've only heard from one of you, so.
I think so, but that date sounds familiar for some reason.
You have a council meeting with the workshop.
That's on my calendar, nothing else is on my calendar, so
Someone's birthday, anniversary?
I don't know.
I will be here unless I have a grandbaby that's any day, so
Awesome.
depending on how soon that happens.
Mr. Vassey's in, I haven't heard from Ms. McPhail. So as long as we have enough of you all there to have a good conversation with them, I say, yeah, I mean, that's,
The reason I ask these things, in reading this, if you can just spare a moment, there's the 9 elements that we have to do by the state, and I was going through those different elements in the last 8 years ago, cultural resources element. And one of the paragraphs is Oconee finds itself in a unique position with upstate South Carolina undergoing a steady and above average growth. We're beyond that. We're kind of exploding out of that at this point. But it says the natural resources that Oconee County possesses provides the county with potential of a natural resource paradise. Proper protection and management of these resources, combined with a professional approach, should allow Oconee to set itself apart from the rest of the region for attracting new industry and additional residential development and investment. I say that because we've been working on this corridor plan in rustic elegance now for 1.5 years, and at the last joint meeting, it was kind of put on hold. Well, that was something that our county population, citizens as a whole, asked for, and we've yet to do anything in almost 10 years about it. There's a whole other one in here about agriculture, and we have struggled over, since I've been here, working through some agriculture elements, some of which have been applied and some of which haven't. So I really do think it goes back to asking county council their opinion on, do we want to satisfy the law, or do we want to plan for the next 20 years?
And that changes every time council changes.
It does, unfortunately.
So how in depth do you go in the planning? Because the next council may not be on board with what this council's on board with if they approve what we just did. That can change. So how in depth do you really want to go?
I think
knowing that-
ultimately our citizens are going to make that call. And council either has to stand up in front of the citizens and say, we want to follow what the citizens want, or we don't want to follow what the citizens want.
But in planning, we should not be concerned with the next council changing things, the next planning commission changing things, or anything of that nature. Because nothing that we do or nothing that council does, or at least almost nothing, is written in stone. They can vote to do one thing this term, and next term they can totally change it and vote to do something totally opposite. Nothing's really written in stone. So we shouldn't even worry about what can be done later on down the line. We need to take our love of the county and our knowledge of the county and do our best for the future. And if it changes, then that's up to the next people. But we can say we've done our best, and we worked with what we knew, or at least in our thoughts, we thought what the county needed in 10 years, how we wanted it to be in 10 years. We can't never worry about somebody else changing it, because it all can be changed. I mean, 5 years from now, they may not be a planning commission. So we just need to take from our standpoint and look at 10 years down the road, and this is what the county wanted in 10 years. Don't worry about if anybody's gonna change it, because they can do it if they want to on anything.
What I was saying is, how in-depth do we go? Do we go 200 and something pages unnecessarily? Because a lot of it is, I think we need to have
A lot of it is waste.
general guidelines of what we want. I don't think the comprehensive plan needs to be very detailed as far as planning for the future, like the corridor. We don't need to lay out in the plan everything that the corridor is supposed to.
Correct.
You see what I'm
Yes.
saying?
So it should be, a lot of this, again, is just meat for the historic reference of it. The goals, as Mr. Smith also said, are really the meat of it. And are we meeting, and have we met those goals? And as we move forward towards the future, that goal section is going to be what we should be referencing on a regular basis, is setting up those goals from the community of what's important, and then coming up with action steps to meet those goals, which is our job. And then trying to work to fulfill those. I guess council can vote for or against. any of those action steps as being important. But I do think that we've got to figure out a way to get from the community, what are the important goals moving forward? What is the vision for everyone out there for what this should look like?
Where do we start? That seems like the big question right now. Where do we start? How do we start? And to me, part of that is finding out if the citizens, what the citizen interest is. We talked about, making it smaller, but also doing it right. Making it a useful, usable, readable document. But it kind of goes back to where do we start? And, do we start by, Adam and I talked this week. Adam called it a kickoff party. Everybody's up for a party. But do we advertise, why we're debating some of this, do we advertise that, hey, Planning Commission's getting ready to start the 2020 comprehensive plan, advertise it and see if we get 5 people here, 10 people here, or 50 people here. If we get 50, 100 people here, then there's interest. If there's not, I just don't know, by bringing Alta in, we could, limit the number of pages, but we'd also have to restrict the font size, because they could make the font really, really small, or really large. So, but it kind of goes back to where do we start, and do we, kind of like we're doing with some of these definitions, do we take a chapter, why we're getting some of this other stuff going, and throw the trash out? And that seems like a logical kind of place for, just like you mentioned, we don't need 19 pages of Coney County history to start off the thing. Let's make it a readable, usable document that people can refer to, without having to have somebody interpret everything. But anyway, going back to citizen interest, and Adam and I, again, talked about, the thing that, I don't know how many people responded, stakeholders, and I think Mr. Smith referred to it, let them come to us. If they're interested, let them come to us. Because if we start asking this group and that group, we're gonna exclude somebody, and then somebody's gonna get offended or hurt or, whatever. So again, I didn't answer any questions, but I asked a lot, but it goes back to where do we start? And I just, I don't want to, I don't like wasting time, and I don't like wasting anybody's time. But there seems to be a general consensus that Alta is probably not the route to go, in my opinion. Well, I shouldn't say a general consensus, my opinion. Because I think we're going to end up with the same unreadable document if somebody does it for us versus we do it ourselves. If we do it ourselves, we're going to put in a format that we can read and we can understand. But that comes down to a manpower issue. And do you hire temporary staff for 6 months to weed out the trash and put in the good stuff and while we're doing meetings?
So if I may just so it's not gonna be for Alta, just my general understanding of this, and they'll come and answer some more questions about it. It's not like we're gonna say, here's $89,000, see you in 2 years, and we'll have a document. They're gonna, it'll be a month by month, they'll be here every month with updates as to how it's going, and our input can still be placed in there. It's not like, just because we're paying someone to do it, it's not like we're gonna like buy a car and they're gonna get in a car. We have actually put in this. But I do like your point there, if you wanted to gauge community interest by having a kickoff party, which I realize that you weren't the biggest fan of calling it a kickoff party, but I can't think of any other way of saying it. If we could find $1,250 for me to, and let's just do the test run with the money, my budget there, although we don't need the $250 for the facilities, and gauge community involvement with a kickoff party, or whatever we want to call it, we can try it that way as well. But I still need money to do the party.
You saying like invite them to our next meeting, like advertise?
But really advertise like we would advertise for a meeting. So like if that's radio spots, if you all think, I think a radio ad's a good way to reach out to people. An actual, maybe some printed signboards, some, smiling and dialing and calling some people that, have like other newspapers and things like that. really advertising something, like we really want people to come there. That could be
I
like.
think we need to explain what the comprehensive plan is in those advertisements.
Sure.
Because I don't think most people even know what that is. So,
Right.
you know, we're looking for direction on how you would like our county to, go in the next 10 years. Because we're updating our plan, you know.
But this once again gets down, so I like the idea of the kickoff party regardless of who does it. But it really comes down to who's gonna do it first. Like, I mean, I can kind of plan a little bit of it, we can say they're gonna do it, we still don't have a finite. So is y'all's opinion to, wait until the next meeting? Wait until we talk to council at the 29th? Is that kind of where we're leaning?
As it stands now, I think, wouldn't they wanna wait till we have the workshop and see what council's view and what they're anticipating? Or do you all wanna make a
It'd be
decision?
interesting to hear county councils, what they would give us as direction.
One other point from staff, I'm assuming that you all talk to similar staff in other counties. Is there any opportunity for us to, if we're gonna do part of it in-house, to use a facilitator or a retired professor or a retired teacher or someone that can come in and, if nothing else, help with being a facilitator for the meetings? And the only reason I say that is otherwise you're looking at the facilitators.
That's correct.
In this room. And whether it's us or whether it's council, we're going to be coming to things with certain agendas or potential biases or certain directions and influence, and may not hear a good statement or a good goal that's coming from the back left corner of the room, and placing importance to it. Whereas a neutral party like a retired professor or somebody that could stand up there and be that facilitator at the meetings at least might truly gauge the interest from the community in various aspects of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and just like when Mrs. Lyles talked about having someone to help do the work and things of that nature, same thing with facilitator. If I'm gonna do it, if the staff is gonna do it here, then yeah, we can reach out and look and see the cost and price that out and see who's available to do something like that. That's certainly a route to take, somebody who does professional facilitation. But once again, then figure out who's doing it first.
I mean, I don't think we should be the facilitators of the meetings.
I don't either.
I mean, I think we need somebody with experience that's facilitated those kind of meetings. Or, like Mike said, a non-biased, opinion, or somebody that's non-biased. We all have our certain biases for the district we represent.
Of course. So for whoever, if we do it in staff, you're looking at your facilitator. It's gonna be this guy. So, regardless of how many meetings we have, I'm gonna show up to them. So, but that just gets to the point. If I have to get ready for that, if I have to find someone else to help out facilitating it, I need to account for these things from a budgetary standpoint. And I hate to keep bringing it back to money, but I can't everything right now is academic until I have a P card with a bunch of money on it to go pay people with. So, am I doing it or someone else?
If nobody has an objection, Tom's got something he wants to add into this.
Is he gonna be our facilitator?
Looking for a side job.
Yeah, right. No, I just wanted to say this. Don't make it more complicated than it really is, okay? There's 9 elements. Take on one element a month. Utilize all your tools. There's only one, the Planning Commission, when they were given the powers by the state, were given the power when they have to do the periodic review to have an advisory committee composed of both citizens and could be members of the Planning Commission. Utilize something like that and let that take the burden off from the Planning Commission and let them report back once a month and have a goal of trying to get through one element each month. Or maybe it's going to take, maybe some elements will take 3 weeks. But don't make this thing bigger. You need to compartmentalize it and make it a lot smaller so you can start to get through this. Otherwise, we'll still be talking in 6 months about how we're going to grasp a hold of this thing.
Well, I got one question. Y'all keep saying stakeholder. What are y'all considering stakeholder? Because I feel that every single person that lives in this county is a stakeholder. they have a stake in what goes on in this county, not just the American Legion or the VFW or that church or this church. Those are stakeholders as well, but we just say stakeholders and we want these groups to come in. What happens to the individual people that also live here and have an opinion? I mean, why are we just saying stakeholders? I mean, I think the 70,000 people that live here is a stakeholder in this county.
Actually, I'd probably reference what Mr. Markovich just said in compartmentalizing it. It's a lot easier to get opinions out of pre-formed groups. So like, to get your opinion, I contact the planning commission, y'all show up, you're my stakeholder group here. County council decided you all should be the stakeholder group for their individual councils. I think stakeholder groups have a lot of, like probably a closer unified position. So for instance, Mr. Johnson's realtor, I'm sure there's an association of realtors, or if there's not for this conversation, there's an association of realtors. They all have their bias and what they're looking for, but that's one group of people. The individuals should, of course, will have open meetings for that as well.
I just don't like the word stakeholders, because that just, to me, is, we're only wanting information from groups, we're not wanting information from citizens. So,
Well, and that's
my
why,
opinion.
that's why I said we don't make a list and invite, if they, if a certain group wants to come and have input, let them come and have input. And I think that's again what Mr. Smith said.
We just advertise in general, we don't send out something to specific
Groups.
people.
What if people request to be informed about it? Individuals or groups of people?
We have 2 meetings a month. They can come to our 2 meetings every month.
Okay,
So-
first question is, are we wanting to do this ourselves and do as Tom and Mr. Smith have brought up, and just go ahead and start on one element of it, and like you were saying, Brad, get all the trash out of it and then do it? Or do we want to suggest, we really need to take a vote of some kind tonight, I think, to decide which way we're gonna go, because if we're gonna get somebody else to do it, then we need to get with them and get them on it. If we're gonna try to do it, which there's nothing that us 7 people can't do, plus with staff, so, hey, we can do anything, but,
Well, you're talking man hours, though. I mean, that is an element, I mean, yes, we actually have the mental capacity to do it, but to have the time to do it, with all of us being, having.
You read the thing, so you must have.
you got more time than most of the rest of us.
All right, well, here's the thing, we got 9 elements to address. We got average pages of the thing is 71 pages.
There's some disparity as far as that. I don't know that that's, if you give me some time until the next meeting to verify that information, I would be happy
We're
to.
talking 5 or 6 pages per element. That's doable. Come on, let's knock out 5 pages.
We can't get through one section of Code 32, and it takes 3 meetings to do that, though. And I don't mean to say that sarcastically, but it does take us a long time to work through
Well,
something.
I don't want us to do 100 pages on element 1.
Definitely agree,
Oh.
agree.
And I don't think we've got to go into minute detail. We just want to get a general trend about which way this county's going.
I think our objectives need to be broad, and then, as councils change, or as we change, or whatever, they get to narrow down those general guidelines as to which direction they want to go.
We need to identify the goals that the county wants.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is pulling that information out of the county, out of the residents.
Okay, so.
My vote is we do it ourselves.
So therefore, if we vote to do it, we gotta have funds to do it with. So if we're not asking the county for 89,000, how much are we actually willing to ask for staff to be able to get the advertisement done? Maybe like you said, buy signs or whatever, and pay them for doing this. I mean, are we gonna ask for $50,000? Because roughly 25,000 of it's gonna go toward meetings, if we have them out in the, but if we have them all here, they won't, but if we have them out, it's gonna cost around 25,000 to have the meetings out in the general public. So that gives us 25,000 for advertising and possibly if we need help hiring somebody to come in and help us with something. So we gotta determine how much money we're gonna ask for if we're gonna do it ourselves.
So, that's a good question. So looking at this, we see legal ad, which is what, a classified ad in the back of the newspaper?
It's the same thing council puts out every time.
What about true advertising to say this is what we're doing? I mean, that's a $500 a pop.
Yeah.
Could be. I haven't gone any further in detail really on too much of that stuff. I've just used kind of anecdotal items. You're right, advertising is, as you're very aware of, is an expensive venture.
So I'm thinking that this, again, trying to draw information out of residents and truly get that interest. If it's just us setting some goals, we can absolutely do those ourselves. But my concern is really getting meat from the residents as to where do they want to see this county in 10 years. This budget is woefully under budgeted.
If I can ask Mr. Root, where are we in the budget process? It seems to me county council should be budgeting money for this the 2020 comprehensive review regardless of whether it's done in-house or out-of-house. There should be some money in a budget coming up or somewhere, and I'm not sure where we're at in the budget cycle. Can you help us with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, the budget.
And I've been missing you tonight, so.
Final budget gets approved right at the end, usually the first meeting, actually, in June, and hopefully we have it set and there's no quibbles about it by May. As far as there being any money set aside in line item for the planning commission, where it's been just zero, I don't know that there is any. I think it's probably still just zero. I know it's a very tight budget, as it always is, but there's some new requests, different than last year, from public safety entities, in large part, and some others. They're gonna make it tighter than usual. That's not to say that this isn't a priority item, but I would say that the sooner you get brought it up, being Thursday, the better. So it can kind of place in the budget, whatever that amount is that you feel you need. But it's not too late. That's your question?
Yeah.
It's not too early. Sooner the better.
But this is money, I mean, they basically have to give us something because we have to do this, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. What something is
Yeah.
what's going to be up to debate.
So we've been going on for almost 40 minutes on this. Back to the question, where do we start? Do we charge Adam with maybe organizing doing some advertising, trying to have at one of our normal planning commission meetings, not a special meeting. Planning commission's getting ready to open up 2020 comprehensive view. You're all invited to give input, we'd have to limit speaking depending on if we have 10 or 100 people show up, but do we get that in the works? Talk to county council next week, request $35,000 to $50,000 not to exceed or whatever, and, again, go back to we gotta start somewhere. So, and the sooner we start, the easier it's gonna be.
Correct.
Does staff, do we have money to do an advertisement by our next meeting?
No.
So we need to actually talk to someone.
I mean, I could put out but I could put out an illegal ad, which I don't know how many people
Yeah,
read
but those little bitty
those.
legal ads, nobody, I mean, we need, something that people are actually gonna see and sort of toward the front, rather than the very back of the paper in a little 1 inch by 2 inch square. I mean, if we want to actually get people in here, they need to actually see it.
It would be a group effort, I believe, to do it in short order. Like we don't have time for like an advertising campaign, so to speak. But once again, that comes down to the first question. I think from my answer to Mr. Kister's question is, where do we start? Who's doing it? If we want to wait until we talk to council to come up with that answer, that may be a way to do it. If you all want to vote tonight on it, of course you can. But I hate to go through the exercise of us figuring out what I could do if I don't know I am doing it.
Can you do it for less than Alta can do it?
$88,000 on the penny. No,
Because if we've already got a really tight budget, I mean, if we can do it cheaper, and because I really do feel like you can do it better. because you know our county, you know our citizens, you know what we need.
But do we? And that's the whole thing, is that's where biases direct something versus getting new information that you go, aha, I didn't realize that was what was being said out here. And that's the whole reason. And every time I've ever been in a meeting of serious consequence, the ahas are what you're paying for.
To answer Ms. Lyle's question there is, I could do it cheaper. I don't know that it'd be the same product at the end of the day. I mean, these are good people who do comp plans for a living. So I don't know that, it wouldn't be cheaper because I wouldn't be delivering the same item that they would deliver, both from the facilitation point of view, which to me, that really is the big deal, is asking the right questions, which I think is what Mr. Johnson was going for, is asking the right questions. If you all allotted $50,000 to the planning department to do the comprehensive plan, that may suffice. I don't know, I can't guarantee you that in a year I won't come back and say, hey, I need another 10 grand, or I can't say that in a year I'll say, hey, here's 20 grand back. It's an unknown for me because I haven't done it before.
All right, can we get a motion that says we want to do the comprehensive plan ourselves? Can I get a motion that says that?
Make the motion that we do the comprehensive plan in-house.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
If we approve this motion, does Alta come to the meeting next week?
No.
No.
No reason.
Just asking.
I mean, if you all would like them to come speak after you voted against it, I'm.
That doesn't seem worth.
I mean, and again, a little bit torn, because again, doing it in-house, yeah, Mike has good points. We might not see the forest through the trees. But
One other quick example. In this book, somewhere that was created 10 years ago, it talks about how we need bicycle paths and things like that because Clemson's coming across the lake. Clemson has come across the lake. And do we have anything like that in position? No. We're still just talking about, do we plan, how many accesses onto 123 do we plan? And they were talking about it 10 years ago that we needed it. So there are things I think that we need to get this thing right, or we're still going to be talking about it and twiddling our thumbs 10 years from now.
and again, my fear is if we say, let's do this in-house, which I agree with, that we don't have the manpower to really, and again, trying to listen to Mr. Markovich, let's not make it more complicated than it is, meaning, does Adam have time to, throw the trash out and still yet organize meetings and do his regular job and all that good stuff? And that comes into, would county fund somebody part-time to come in and just punch through this thing? I'm kind of in between, having somebody that's done it, a professional, I think it's great, but in the same sense, I think we're gonna end up with another thick document that nobody can read. So, but it might be better,
I'd like to at least hear the professional next week sell themselves. And they either do or they don't. And I'm not insistent one way or the other, but I'm wondering, looking around the room going, who's going to build the website so that consumers can talk about it there? Who's going to build the consumer-facing social media sites to get conversations started about it?
But we don't know the citizen interest. We don't know if there's gonna be 10 people coming in here to comment or 300 people. My guess it would probably be closer to 10 than 300.
And I would agree, and that's why I think Ms. Lyles had a good point, that we've got to talk about this to get the citizens interested, because most of them don't know what it is or what it's even about. Yet you go to any coffee shop and everybody's talking about what should or shouldn't take place in our communities.
Well, I'll point out that since I've been here, I don't think we've had 10 Oconee County citizens come to listen.
And why is that? Because we don't promote it enough, I think. I mean, and that's where this should come into play.
And a lot of people don't even know what planning commission does. It's just another meeting and that's it. They don't know.
Again, you go to a coffee shop and people are talking, well, they should have done this, and why did they do that? And why did that stoplight go in? And all these different things, and yet nobody knows where to truly voice that where it matters.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I could, just my thinking is, it is an effort that originates with you all, but the council has to sign off on it. It seems to me that having the meeting with them and discussing it and getting them vested, so y'all have an approach where you're working together, may generate some more energy, because they gotta get the people that they talk to involved as well, and they gotta fund it, whether Adam does it or a third party does it. And also, there's things like the 150th anniversary that's going on, that's generated it's generated a lot of momentum that Amanda and other people that are really involved with that. You can jump into that kind of synergy with things that are going around in the county and get advisory groups and councils to take on certain elements and jobs. And so I don't know that just a decision to say, hey, let's just have one person pay for it or one person do it or do it in-house is going to solve what y'all are talking about. I think there's a preliminary, all right, let's get all the information on how best to take that first step, in my thinking, and meeting with council, maybe hearing from Alta and saying, hey, they're terrible, they're going to be too much, and they're going to create a gargantuan document that's useless. Or they're going to help us do a streamlined document that's going to be less than what admin costs. I mean, it seems like there's some information that you need to gather. First, that meeting Thursday may be a good place.
So we need to do
So can
what?
I make the motion to table my motion until the next meeting?
So there we have a motion to table and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
I'm lost.
Okay.
We're gonna wait till the next meeting.
All right,
after
good.
we
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
council, and then we'll decide.
We still want Alta to come to the meeting as well, Adam.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go on to the next big topic, discussion on clarification of certain code sections bearing on land use and development as contained in chapter 26, chapter 32, and 38 of the Oconee County Code of Ordinances.
So of the 18 items that I brought to you, and then you all voted to send it to Planning and Economic Development, who then voted to send it back to you, who then you all told me to work on bits and pieces of it, I've now brought you 3 items. They're no particular order, I just picked some that I felt were, well, honestly, an easy win to start with, get you all saying yes, get you all the yes, that's my thought. So the first item I brought you all was currently the zoning matrix, which is a table which kind of puts the whole zoning ordinance into what you can and cannot do into a table form, doesn't have a heading on it. So you can't go to the Code of Ordinances and see zoning matrix. It's just a purely secretarial issue that I don't have, but I can't change, we can't change the code without you all. So this is just literally just putting a heading on the zoning matrix inside of the Code of Ordinances.
That helps us as far as the website being able to link to a button or something that.
Right, because right now, like if you were to look for control-free district, you can go scroll down, say control-free district, click it and go. You can't do that with zoning matrix. It was just either, it's just not there, so.
Staff feels like we need it, it makes sense. I'm all for it.
Move on board. Move to approve.
Next.
Hold on.
Got to vote.
Yes.
I think we're
By
on.
acclamation,
Yeah.
everybody said yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what he said.
All right, the next item was that currently the planning commission is is the final word on naming subdivisions. I'm sure you all have been involved in naming a lot of subdivisions. We've got a lot of subdivisions in the county, which you've all obviously approved the name of, right? Of course. So it hasn't happened before. So what I did was I removed, my opinion on it is we just harmonize the subdivision names with the road names. So that's what this says. It says, subdivision names have to go to addressing, easy to read and pronounce. This is strictly for EMS uses. Subdivision names that could be confused as homonyms, names that are vulgar, subdivision names spelled in a weird way, can only be called one thing, and can't be duplicates. And that would help just clarify.
The developer names their own as long as they follow those guidelines.
That's correct.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept staff's recommendations on this matter?
I so move.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yay.
All those in favor, say aye.
So you said yes twice in a row. Doesn't that feel good? Okay, I wasn't aware before I jumped off this bridge that signs had been historically in something, a bit of contention. But all I'm looking to do here, I haven't changed what you're allowed to do, what signs you're allowed to put where. I've added some words that I feel needed some words. I've asked a couple questions of you all which need to be answered. People who, like for, let's say, Chick-fil-A or any other major chains, they hire permit expediters to read codes professionally and submit permits. And I get calls from these people going, huh? Like about our current code, because there's things that are, and I'll point out to you that are just, could be worded a little clearer, and this has got beta tested. You all voted on this a year ago, so I just kind of want to walk you through this red line by red line. So the first item right here, under 32.517, I added county building official or their designee may be in charge of the signs, issuing the permits, things like that. Right now, it's the sheriff's office. We do it, planning and zoning does it, just the sheriff's office is the one who's currently, right, it's in your code, Neil.
Yeah.
You're talking about the enforcement part?
Well, that's for the authority. The article is adopted, personnel employed by the county, is right here, shall be vested with the authority to enforce and administer the sign code. So enforcement, yes, but also administration, which is the permits side of it. So, we all good with that? We don't have to vote on it, but as long as everyone's okay with that part.
Does this involve hiring somebody?
No, sir. No, sir. This is just codifies our normal day-to-day activities. The next part of this is jurisdiction, just right under at the bottom of this first page here. And this just clarifies the grandfathering language. We currently have grandfathering language for the entire code. This just puts it in to clearly answer the questions that people have asked in the past. If we've added electricity, does that change it? Yeah, that changes it, because you need a building permit to add, run 220 to a 40-foot electric sign. So this just clarifies, this doesn't constrain anybody any further than the ordinance does. This just clarifies the grandfathering of it. Anybody have any questions in this part?
So if they have a billboard right now that's grandfathered,
Correct,
and it's not up to the current codes,
correct.
and they decide to just put a light on that billboard, they have to completely bring it up to the current codes?
They would have to bring up the lighting and things like that. They wouldn't be able just to
Like
rig it
if
in.
that billboard's somewhere where now it's not permitted, and they wanted to add a light to it, they couldn't do that?
Under our current grandfathering rules, even without that sentence in there, I believe that is the case, that it would pull them out of grandfathering. I'd have to look into it a little deeper, but
I'm not so sure about that, and I think that's a really valid concern. I mean, there's a whole bunch of cases of when billboards are destroyed and they were grandfathered in, and someone tries to rebuild them. But, I mean, we end up with cases about that because what property rights are being infringed upon when someone says no. And similarly, if someone wants to put a light on, you can't do it now. It's a tricky thing, and I talked to Adam about this. I didn't want to mess with any of this stuff because we just did it. I know Greg, when he did it, he had a specific issue he wanted to fix with the 1,300 feet and the signs going closer together. But Adam had good points. There's stuff he was working with and has trouble with. This one, I can see could be opening up issues. I mean, Adam, is this one that you deal with? You have questions about a lot? The jurisdictional line?
people have called and asked what they can and cannot do. Now, if I took electricity out of there, everything else would be correct, because the structure would ungrandfather something, would it not? That's more of a question. Right, so if this gets too complicated down the weeds, we can, I'm not
That one
married
was
to it.
such a sticky subject.
I didn't, and so, again,
That
that's,
one scares me.
that's institutional knowledge that, I mean, if you all aren't off the cuff okay with, or wanna chew it over, I can easily just hit the delete button on that stuff. It's not a,
Because grandfathering is a really big deal.
Is your goal here, is it really just to make grandfathering that's applicable generally in chapter 32? You're just wanting to reference it here? Or
that's
more
it,
specific?
really, just trying to put it in there to put it all in one place. Really, that was the end goal, is to try to put everything in the same place. And that's kind of what I did with the organization of the rest of the sign code, is to kind of put everything in the same place. So if you all think this is too sticky to get into, we can delete that line. It's not something that'll keep me up at night.
I make a motion to delete that. I think that's a sticky subject.
Second.
Third.
Any further discussion?
Just for this line, that's it. All right, okay.
Yeah.
That's an aye from everyone? Yes? Aye?
Yes.
Aye.
Everybody in agreement?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so scratch that. All right, easy, see, look at that. We're saying yes again. This is great. In further on down the code, inside definitions right here, but further on down from the code, it references building mounted signs. There's no definition for building mounted signs, and people ask me, what's a building mounted sign? So I came up with this definition. Any of the numbers that are referenced in building mounted signs are already in the code. I didn't add them or change them or any way manipulate them at all. I just gave a definition for building mounted sign and put just definition, and I've added what they're allowed to do that's already currently in the code.
So we've just moved it to there under terms and definitions.
Well,
Or added it there under terms.
Right, yeah, because there isn't currently any definition for building mounted sign, so I created a definition and added if somebody looked up building mounted sign, they came to it, they could actually see what they're looking for. So,
And this is, if I could, Mr. Chairman, another one that was kind of sticky, as I recall, when we had this discussion before, then we wanted to make the distinction between signs, which are advertising on premises, billboards, which are advertising for another place. Billboards are gonna be larger, general concept of what a billboard is. Building mounted signs, here as we have it written, not what Adam's added, he's added some clarification, but when we have it written is they can, building mounted signs could be the same size as a billboard. And I think this is one that we said, all right, let's just deal with this later. I think this is the one issue because we started talking about percentages of the size of the building facade, and then it bogged down at that point. That was my recollection. So I'm just throwing that in there because I think this is one that we started tiptoeing around and got bogged down.
But right now, the wording exists in another document. This wording exists.
that the size of the signs that, when a building is located or addressed from a 4-lane road, the maximum sign area for a building mounted sign is 672 square feet. 672 square feet exists. And it's located on a 2-lane road, 75 square feet. That already exists, that's the current language in the code. I've just put it here in one place.
That's the current language for someone to put a sign on the side of their building.
If that is our definition of a building mounted sign, yes, sir.
Yeah, he added the definition of what the building mounted
Okay, I mean, I personally, I don't think they should be allowed to put billboards on the side of their building. I mean, a sign, yes, but not something as big as a billboard on the side of it. There should be a percentage.
We got into that with, like these mega plants and stuff. Their wording on the side of their building, may be as big as a billboard. Because it's a huge building and it looks tiny on that huge building if you put a 50-square foot sign.
Right.
I mean, I guess I'm confused. What does it say in the code now? Just says sign, or does it say building mounted sign?
So it says building mounted sign and billboard, and further on, so not, I kinda wanna keep us in a linear fashion, but if you go to the next page under 32.523. It says signs, 32.523. All right, so where it said before, it says the maximum sign area, the black language in black is the language that exists. It says the maximum sign area on a 4-lane or larger road shall contain no more than 75 feet of sign area per sign of face. This excludes building mounted signs, and I scratch out billboards, as defined by this chapter, which may contain up to 672 square feet of sign area. So building mounted signs may have up to 672 feet of sign area per our current code. So that's where it says it. I just
So we already have it there, you're just clarifying it under terms and definitions.
Yes, sir.
What it is, yeah, what a building mounted sign is.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
I'll second that.
So we're approving the definition, right?
Yes.
For. Is that the affirmative nod by from
The
everyone?
only question, might be a silly question, but should the sign on the building be tied to what the building's business for? I mean, can you come and
Coca-Cola on the hardware store.
Can you have your sign in your building, but sell some additional space on your building because you haven't used all the square footage for advertising?
Advertising for stuff that you sell on premise, or is
No,
it-
for another company.
that's a billboard then? Do you sell that company's goods on your premise?
If you put a Coca-Cola sign on the hardware store,
Do they sell Coca-Cola?
no, because they sold the Coca-Cola, they sold the space.
So then that could be two big signs, two big billboards, area signs, 670.
Isn't that what you're getting at?
I'm getting at, say if you have a building and you're an accountant and you got Joe's Accounting, but yeah, it's a big building, and so you decide to put up, Bounty, I'm gonna lease space at Bounty Land Supply. They want Bounty Land Supply down the street. Should it?
As we have it now, and there's no change with what Adam's doing, I believe both of those signs, if they're building mounted, both could be individually up to 672.
I don't know that I'm reading this the same way that, it says this excludes building mounted signs and billboards, comma, as defined by this chapter, which may contain up to 672 square feet of sign area. Is that not just talking about billboards? Can you look, but is there a way to look back and see what we actually decided about this before?
What the current code is? You mean? Is that the question?
Yeah, as far as the building mounted signs, because we did go into detail in this in a meeting.
It's possible the current
And
code.
I don't remember us putting a limit on it, but
I thought we had discussed it, there was gonna be a percentage. They weren't gonna be able to use the whole side of their business or front side of their business to advertise whatever. I thought it was just, we were just gonna have a normal sign, like Walmart or like Family Dollar Store, instead of them being able to advertise JCPenney's and everybody else on the front side of their building. I mean, if we're gonna do that, then we can pretty much do away with billboards, because everybody can advertise on the front of their business up here.
We went through months of dealing with signs, and we, presented council with language that, I guess they approved and wrote into law. Now, as I understand, what we're trying to do right now is not change the sign code from what we've already done, but make the language where it's more understandable. Now, if you want to go back into changing the sign codes, I'm gonna vote against changing the sign codes right now. We don't need to spend another 3 or 4 months fooling with signs. But,
Do you feel that if you and Mr. Root had a conversation and brought this back next time, that you could work. It seems like Mr. Reed has some concerns about some of this
I
wording.
expressed them to Adam before. I mean, we already met and I expressed concerns. That's what he's got highlighted here. So what we did last time was B was billboard. Oh wait, we defined what a billboard was, and spacing, defined what a sign was, and C, that's gonna have you a limit of 75 square feet. So that's on premises. And then we get to D, and that's the thing, Adam's moved stuff around for the goal of his, which is clarity. But D, that part of this, I think, is highlighted. Says, all right, 75 square foot limit for signs. This excludes building mounted signs and billboards.
Well, it's
Which
where
is
I,
672, was the language we left in there. And that was my recollection, was we couldn't get to a percentage, so you just left it at the billboard side.
well, it says building mounted signs and structures considered billboards, and then to me, I would read that as, that 672 applies to billboards, not to building mounted signs.
I think it's this excludes part, this excludes the two. I think the definition, where it says as defined in this chapter, does apply to billboards, but it says this excludes building mounted signs and structures, comma, which may contain up to 672. I see where you're reading, but I think it's saying an exemption from the 75-foot limit is for building mounted signs, because I think that argument we had was about what percentage and what these huge buildings, they're not gonna have a 50 square foot sign on them.
Right.
Ford Warner's not gonna have a 50 square foot sign. Let them have up to the 672, let's not mess with that. I think that's the way it ended up.
Yeah, and I'm gonna apologize about, I didn't realize this was as sticky as it was. I just know that I have, yeah, but it's the lawyer. Yeah, but after I'd already written it up and but it'd gone through you all twice already before that, so I figured you all had some thoughts on it. Well, but these are issues for me on a day-to-day basis. So both you all in the Planning and Economic Development Commission both thought these things. So if that's an issue, I can take off just like we did before. I'm happy with any wins here. The fact that I can now actually administer the sign code for the very first line, I'm happy with. So
I don't have a problem with defining building mounted signs. I just don't remember us setting a limit on building mounted signs. The 672 applies to billboards. I don't remember us saying that applied to building mounted signs. But I may be wrong, but I would like to see that.
What he's saying is, I'll read it from where y'all read. All right, so no sign shall contain more than 75 square foot. So that's where we limited the size of signs.
Right.
And then, but we're excluding from that 75-foot limit building mounted signs and billboards.
Right.
That's
But
what
it-
he's
May
saying,
contain 672.
which makes
So
it
that has
672
already
could
been
also
decided
be
and is in
more
our
than
code.
percentage, but that's the way so that
I'm gonna research
limit. This is no change, this is nothing different in here, this is
Okay.
what's in our code.
So basically, you're just moving it over here where it all listed, you're not really changing anything anywhere, right?
no, sir, that part I knew much. I think
You're
the lawyer
putting
might have told me
definitions
something.
at the moment.
Okay, I agree with staff. Well, I agree with your recommendation to put it there and the wording. Anyone else?
I already made that motion.
Yeah, that motion's been made, just the vote is what I was looking for.
We can change it later if we want it changed.
Okay.
Which I agree with Ms. Lyles that we may address
She'll
this
come-
another day,
yeah.
but not
It's
today.
okay.
If she comes up, if she,
Just go ahead, I'm good. But
all right, next.
Okay, so a big question I get really regarding any sign is what's the setback on it and how high can it be? Right now, I use the underlying zoning district for the setbacks of it because I don't have anything else to go on. So is that what you all meant in here? The setback for a sign, where a sign can go, where'd you all want it to be? So I gave you three options there, I separated them by ors. So the following all setback requirements of the underlying zoning district, because that's what I do right now. Be setback X number of feet from the property lines or right-of-ways, whichever is greater. That would be, since the right-of-ways often encroach into private property, you would do the setback from the right-of-way. Or have no setback requirements, but can't be put in any right-of-way. And the reason why I don't want to put stuff on the right-of-way, and that's just staff opinion, we can say you put stuff in the right of way, is that eventually if we widen the road, we're gonna have to move a sign. The county's gonna have to move a sign, and that's an expense.
The
So,
expense wouldn't be on the owner of the sign?
it could be, I don't know necessarily how roads and bridges work, but if we rip up a driveway, expanding right of way, I imagine if roads and bridges tear something up, they generally fix it, or utilities come through and tear up a driveway. I think they fix it, I think that's how it goes, I'm not certain on that. But something in the right of way prevents the expansion of a road momentarily. So just, what should the setback be? The underlying zoning district's the easiest one, because that's what I use at the moment.
Well, I like the fact that there's sign differences, that a billboard has to be set back, but if it's less than 50 square feet, a smaller sign can actually go more forward.
To me, the underlining zoning district probably seems the best way to proceed, in my opinion. If we do a setback X number of feet from property line, then we're gonna get into,
Right.
we're gonna get into all kinds of things.
So we got three options here.
Yes, ma'am. Or more, if you have some other options or some iterations or combinations of those, just three I gave you all.
I'm with y'all. I like the
Oh.
zoning district.
Remember, some setbacks go from the property line back, and some setbacks are from your right-of-way back, correct?
That's correct. Control-free district, all the zoning districts, which is everything but control-free district, are measured from the right-of-way.
So if you got a 50-foot right-of-way, that's 25 foot on your property, and then there's another 25 foot, so your sign can be only 50 foot. It has to be 50 foot away from the property line. And on the other ones, it'll only be 25, because it just comes from the property line itself.
So for instance, let's take 123. Let's take 123, for example. Highway Patrol, State Highway Department has a huge right-of-way, anywhere between like 30 and 90 feet. But no one's property starts before their right-of-way. Their right-of-way ends where your property line starts. So the setback, the control-free district's 25 feet. The sign will be set back 25 feet from that property line.
But their right-of-way is actually a greater distance than what the road actually is.
Now, in some cases, I don't know necessarily on 123, but possibly, there's overlap of the right-of-way onto the property. So in the control-free district, it'd be measured from the property line, whereas most of the county's not zoned, so. But that is up for a further conversation on another day, is why they're measured differently. They shouldn't be, just as staff opinion as a prelude to another conversation we're gonna have.
Recommendations? A?
And this would be, this would go on Mr. Granman's point, this is all new language, this is an addition to what's in the code currently. We don't have anything in there regarding the setbacks apart from just reference to another place, which is going to be addressed a bit as far as not ambiguity, but difference in treatment of where the setback starts at another meeting.
So if this is gonna be addressed later, do we really need to address it now?
Well, the setbacks are gonna, the setback measurement line is gonna be addressed, I guess, in another meeting, because we have a different approach, perhaps for control-free versus the others. I would, again, to me, I wouldn't mess with this, but Adam, I don't work in planning, so I don't deal with people asking me that question. I would say, stick with the, setback for the area, within which you're zoned, and we don't have to add anything to this section of the code to do that. But I don't answer those calls, so that's easy for me to say.
And currently you do it how?
As the underlying zoning district, because I don't have any other directive otherwise. People ask me where they can put their sign, I'm like, setback for the property.
But right now, they can put it on their property line as long as their property line is not in the setbacks?
Right of way? I think that's what you meant.
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean.
As long as it's within, no, not right of the property, it's the setback from the property line. So the control-free district's 25 feet. So for instance, a business went in on a Kiwi School Road. Their property line is actually center line of the road. Pull it 25 feet back. It happens to be out of the right of way as well, but it's 25 feet back. It's fairly close to the road, but it's out of the right of way, but it is 25 feet back. It's a great big sign if you've ever
That
down
was
there.
my concern, is how, it being too far back off the road to
Sure.
where you can't really see it. But if the property line starts in the center of the road, then that, it's still gonna, in
Oh.
control-free district, it's still gonna be pretty close.
In that particular instance, it did.
Or
The-
too close.
Right, so in some cases, so like the state roads, well, I don't know, let's just say for 123 once again, property lines aren't extending to the center line of the road. Though a lot of the ancillary, secondary, tertiary roads, center line is oftentimes the center line. So the center line of the road is often, sometimes the property line. So in those cases, you measure from there,
Sometimes.
sometimes. I don't have a definitive, so that's what it's saying, right now I'm using property line.
So like a typical two-lane road, 50-foot right-of-way,
Mm-hmm.
road's 22 feet wide. And then the property line starts. So 15 plus whatever the zone is.
Right.
So you currently use option 1,
Yes, ma'am.
so we just need to make that part of the code, is what you want.
If that's what you all would like, yes, ma'am. That, I mean, because that to me, having a definitive answer when someone says, show me where it says that. Well, okay, here it is. Which people do. Those, the permit expediters usually ask me to just show them because they have to provide that information to someone else. So as opposed to me directing them to another chapter in the code, I can say, right there.
So does anybody here have, an objection to that?
No.
No,
Okay, I move that we do it. Option A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Signs less than 50 square feet, they don't require a permit. Can you just put them anywhere? Do you have to put them out of the right of way? Can you put them, signs, right now, signs less than 50 square feet aren't, a permit's not required for, and that's fine. Where can they put them? Can they put them within the right of way?
I say yes, just because we have all these political signs, yard sale signs, that kind of stuff.
Well, 50 square feet's bigger than a sheet of plywood. I don't really think we got a need to have a sheet of plywood size sign just right on the edge of the pavement. Be a safety hazard.
But if you put that in that they can't, then nobody can put a political sign on the side of the road, nobody can put a yard sale sign right on the side of the road, because that's less than 50 square feet.
Correct, inside the right of way.
When you're saying signs, is signs defined here as a permanent sign or a temporary sign, or is not defined?
I thought about going to temporary signs, and then I thought better of it. Let's look back here.
From what I understand, you're talking about campaign signs. They're actually not supposed to be on the side of the road in the right of way anyway. The state can
Intersection.
go by there and take every single one of them up. They're supposed to be outside that right of way from what I understand.
We all know that. There's yard sale signs stuck to every
And yard sale signs should be,
Oh,
well,
stop sign, and there's,
I think they should be at least, they shouldn't be nowhere near, in the right of way. They should be off the right of way.
So our mowing teams do have to mow around them and move them, things of that nature. So they do possibly have an issue. So temporary signs are an issue for sure. Permanent signs are also probably even the larger issue. Can we permit them? So, yeah, I guess that's your question. That's y'all's burden.
well, since you don't have a since they don't get permitted anyway, then you're pretty much gonna have to go around the county and look for signs that aren't where they're supposed to be to enforce it, right?
Or people call me. Yes, I don't go looking for problems. They come to me. They found my number and they come to me. So if somebody calls me about something, for instance, the new sign I was starting to do on Kiwi School Road, people called me and said, oh, it was way too close to the road, but I went out there and measured it, and I got the county engineer to go with me to verify, and it's okay. So people do call and complain about any number of
I
things.
believe that.
I think that stuff should stay out of the right of way, especially if you're getting calls of people feeling as though something's dangerous.
Especially a 50 square foot sign.
That's
But we
10, I
have to
mean,
remember this says less, any signs less than 50 square feet. So that's from this size to that size.
that's from real estate signs
Yep.
to builder signs to, I don't know, do you have chicken house signs?
Yes, I do.
Chicken house signs?
Yes, and it's probably within that, because the truck drivers have to be able to see my farm, come to know where to turn to deliver feed, so
Gotcha.
I say we leave it out.
What is staff recommend?
Within the right of way.
Yeah.
Be a better- My concern with this is that right-of-ways, when you draft an easement or right-of-way, it may be very large. It may be 75 foot, it may be 100 foot wide to accommodate a future use or whatever the landowner is willing to grant. And so that may be ill-defined, and it may put somebody's ability to put a sign 30 or 40 feet off of the actual road. Right, so the right-of-way, the easement can be it varies, and determining the size of the right-of-way easement can be difficult to do too, so. I'm not saying that this is a bad language, I'm just saying there might be a better wheel that's already been invented for this one, as opposed to going with the right-of-way, going with, something more akin to the traveling road or something like that. Let us come back.
Okay, I was fixing to say.
Scratch that part of it?
Yeah,
Everyone okay with that? For the sake of, everyone good with that?
sake of time.
Well, I mean, all right. Heights, 65 foot is the county height limit in all the zoning districts. Once again, people ask me how high they can put a sign. I tell them 65 feet, and they go, wow. So, but if 65 feet's good with you, that's the underlying zoning district.
Or they
That's-
want higher signs?
No, I think 65 feet on a county road is plenty, or even a state road, that's super high. That's about as high as the hospital is for sake of comparison.
I don't think they should be anymore, but we're not here to change,
Yeah, I
is that
think
what
we
we're
already
here
just-
for,
I
to
think we
change them?
already handled that during signs too.
Yeah,
Move
so
to approve.
I utilize that 65 foot is the height, so. Just, Mr.
Second.
All in favor, you gonna call?
Well, all in favor?
Aye.
I didn't know we was actually taking a vote, so.
Sweet. I rearranged the billboard section, I just rearranged it. I haven't done anything to it. I've just rearranged it. I put it into an order. That way you don't have to go all over, because it's spread throughout the 2 pages of the current code. So I just got all the stuff for billboards and I put it in there. So there's not been any change to any of that language. It's all the same, that language is.
Not on this slide here, it's on the next slide, is that right?
It should be right here, 32522.
Okay.
Which staff is telling us the truth, I move to approve.
Second,
With him.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. The next section, 32523. It says signs with a sign area greater than or equal to 50 square feet, but less than or equal to 75 square feet shall be permitted on 2-lane roads. Does that mean signs under 50 square feet are not permitted on 2-lane roads? People ask me that, and I don't tell them no. I'm just saying it's not a clear sentence. I just rewrote it to say the maximum sign area for signs on 2-lane roads is 75 square feet, which includes building mounted and freestanding signs.
I think the key there was permitted, is 50 to 75. You have to have a permit for one that's between 50 and 75.
That's correct. It's just odd. Anything over 50, you need a permit for.
Right.
It's maxing out on a 2-lane road, it's saying 75 feet is the max.
Right, but I think the reason that it's worded the way it is so that they know if it's between 50 and 75 feet, you gotta have a permit for it. If it's under 50 square feet, you don't have to have a permit. And I don't think the new language specifies that.
I would agree.
Signs and must require a permit and requires
Between
permit.
50 and 75 feet require a permit.
A permit. So if I left everything that says the maximum sign area for signs on 2-lane roads is 75 square feet, which includes building mounted signs and freestanding signs. Signs above 50 square feet need a permit? Would that suffice? Or and require a permit?
Did we specifically state building mounted signs in the original code?
No.
Can't be? I think we need to just leave it as it is.
Okay.
Second.
When you say leave it as it is,
Leave the black, what's in black, because it says shall be permitted on two-lane roads. Maybe if we need to add anything, just add, anything under 50 square feet does not require a permit.
So I do have that further on, where it currently resides is further on, where, in the code, under exceptions. All signs that are 50 square feet do not require a permit.
Why don't you just, we just need to clarify the two sentences together, because what it is if it's over 50 square feet, it needs to have a permit to go with it. But 75 is the maximum
On a two-lane road, correct.
on a two-lane road. Signs whether they're greater or equal to 50 square feet, but less than 75 feet. The maximum height of a sign is 75, or maximum area of the sign is 75 feet. Any signs greater than 50 feet shall require a permit. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Because see, here in your new language, it says that a building-mounted sign can't be over 75 square feet on a two-lane road, and I don't know that that was the original intent of that code.
Okay.
So where are we?
So
you want-
exactly what was you trying to accomplish with this sentence?
Because I've gotten more than one phone call asking me if they can have signs under 50 square feet on two-lane roads. And yes, you can. But on here, it's what its current language says, signs of the sign area greater than or equal to 50 square feet, less than 75, shall be permitted.
If you just add the sentence that, below 50 feet doesn't require a permit.
Yeah.
All you have to do is point them to the exceptions at the end, and it's done, right?
That would work
You
too.
don't have to change anything.
Well, I think you need to change this, not maybe the change you've got, but in the black, it says shall be permitted on two-lane road. That doesn't mean it has to have a permit, that's just saying we approve it. If you're gonna, to let them know that we're gonna they have to have a permit for 50 and 75, or from 50 to 75, you maybe refer to the section that lets them know that, but, and take out billboard mounted signs. I mean, building mounted, out of the red.
Well, now I'm getting confused. Does permitted mean allowed, or does that
Well,
mean it requires a permit?
In
just
that
says
statement,
permitted.
in that statement, it
Does
says
what?
say we're permitting it. It don't mean they gotta buy a permit.
To me, that just reads like it's allowed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right now, when it says is permitted, it just means, yeah, you can do that. It doesn't say how.
I read it as
how
has to
you
require a
permit.
permit, but
Yeah, I think we need to clarify whether it requires a permit or not.
okay. All signs up to 75 square feet are allowed on two-lane roads. Anything under 50 square feet does not require a permit. Does that work?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that
you
solves the
write that
issue.
down?
Yeah, that solves the issue. No, I'm,
Yeah, I make the motion that we change it to that.
If that solves the issue?
So we got a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
The next thing, I just scratched off B. I just scratched off billboards because we put all the billboard stuff in the same place.
Okay.
All the billboard stuff's in the same place. I haven't futzed with it at all. That's just right here. Where's my mouse? So, 32524, I've just put all the abandoned billboard and signs language together. I haven't changed it all, I've just compartmentalized it. It's all there. So, there's no new language in that, it's what currently exists. This is the exceptions. People ask, so A, under the exemptions, people ask me all the time, I get a lot of phone calls, The phone calls I get about signs, most of those calls are asking me about like for like. If you have a sign and you're replacing the face of it, so like Chick-fil-A, they're replacing, getting new colors on their Chick-fil-A sign or get a new sign. Same exact, just the face of it, just the plastic Lexan part that we read as Chick-fil-A. They're replacing it. Do they need a permit for that? Should they have to get a permit? Current interpretation is no, they don't. They're not changing anything, nothing, building codes isn't changing, structure isn't changing, placement isn't changing. They're literally just essentially changing a light bulb, and they shouldn't have to get a permit for that. That's staff's opinion, that's my interpretation. But it doesn't say that in the code. So if you all are of that opinion, then that would be a helpful thing to have in the code.
What's the significance of that towards grandfathered signs?
Same thing, like for like, if you're changing the permit, you're not changing you're not really changing it. I'd have to look a little closer, and you'd have to give me if you hand me something definite to look at, I could probably give you a more clear answer. But off the cuff, changing like for like stuff, I don't believe affects grandfathering.
Changing the sign face and adding electricity, I thought was enough to disqualify the grandfather.
We scratched that part from the beginning.
Okay,
That was the initial issue. But the actual face itself wasn't part of that. But the like for like is a constant question for me for its signs. So does everyone,
Move to approve.
all right.
As long as it doesn't affect grandfathering, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm good then.
All in favor?
So, right now, sides less than square feet shall be exempted from requiring permits unless electricity. It's a building codes issue. If you're running, like, so Zaxby's that's gone up, I don't know if you all seen the Zaxby's, if you all come that way. They have a bunch of signs, I don't believe any of them are over 50 square feet. In fact, I know that all 4 of them are under 50 square feet, but they all are pulling power, they're all running conduit, they're all doing things like that, and they required a building permit for that. So we don't require a zoning permit at all for that kind of things. But to run electricity from for a commercial building, you have to have permits for these things from our building code, not from our zoning code.
So that's for a new sign, that's not dealing with cleaning up or changing like for like.
That is not a like for like, that's if you're running power to something.
If they're building a new building, why would they need to get a separate permit to run electricity? Wouldn't that just be covered under the general building permit?
The sign, no, because the sign people are done, signs are done, in my experience, signs have been done independently. You pay the GC, but it's like the landscapers. For your business, landscapers come in separate. The sign people, at least in the case of the Zaxby's, were a separate group of people who are coming in.
Yeah, but typically the general contractor would run power out there for the sign contractor, then the sign contractor would come and set a sign and hook it up.
Now, would the
Or
GC in that case do the permitting for all that stuff at the same point in time?
I'm sorry?
Would the GC generally come in and do that?
That's what I'm asking. That's,
Well, if you run power out to an outbuilding or something like that, do you get that permitted? I can get some clarification on this from Mr. Carroll.
I think that one needs some clarification,
Okay.
in my opinion. I mean.
No, that's
if
fine.
we're
You're the
talking,
builder.
if there's an existing building and you're gonna add a new sign, yeah, that needs a building permit. But if you're building a building and there's a general building permit, to me, the answer is probably no.
But for a new building, I need a sign permit,
Correct,
but not a building permit.
correct.
it would have to follow building
But the
codes in
zoning,
any
you
case.
need zoning approval for the sign.
Correct.
It's not necessarily a zoning permit.
Correct, zoning approval for the signs, that is correct, for placement and make sure they're outside the setbacks, which we just established for that. So, but Mr. Gramley's saying building codes they have to follow,
Building code, what?
which is,
If they're running, pipe and wire, they need to have, that's covered with the building codes, just like the rest of the building.
This
That's
seems
what I'm
like an
saying.
unnecessary expense to me, to have
That's
to
what I'm saying.
charge
That
them
one
for
just needs-
another permit.
Yeah, needs to be difference between existing and new construction, in my mind.
so Mr. Gramley, you do commercial construction, is that correct?
A small amount.
Small amount. I mean, I just don't wanna mislead people. If somebody goes and puts in something, and then it comes back around that they needed a commercial, like a building permit, electrical, let's say electric permit to run a sign, but we've just told them here that they don't need a permit. So if somebody was to read this, a bad GC were to read this, would that somehow be confusing at all, do you think?
Well, if you got an existing building and an existing sign and you want to electrify it, the building codes will address
Correct.
how it needs to be done. I don't know that I could pass on whether or not the building code requires a permit to run one wire out to a sign, as long as but if it was done in a non-code manner. I mean, there's underground cable you can just put in the ground, there's pipe and wire that you can do this. You know, there's different things, but I'm not really on top of the codes enough to tell you what the code allows and not allows there, but you don't want to just take a piece of lamp cord and pull it through the grass.
That's true, I've definitely seen people cut,
It'd be my recommendation, you take this one back to Scott Carroll. I think there needs to be a differentiation between new construction and
I mean,
existing.
if it's like the Zaxby's you were talking about, I'm like, they ran the wire out there to where the sign was gonna be. All the guys, that you're talking about, the sign people, they came up and put the sign up in there, and that was inspected when they did their inspection, when, building codes goes out. All of those wires were inspected to make sure they were, the proper size and hooked up properly. On a new, on somebody that has an old sign out there, I don't know, I mean, do we require them to, get it inspected before they turn it on? And if so, then we gotta inspect it, then they should be told how they're supposed to do it. If they gotta put it in a certain, conduit or what have you, but.
so perhaps, sorry, perhaps I can word this in a different way, saying, signs under 50 square feet don't need a building permit unless they don't need a permit from my office, but they do need a permit if they're going to require one from the building codes. Because we tripped up on this already one time, that's why I want to clarify
Let's check
it.
with Mr. Carroll, see what the codes are from that side on an old construction. We already know they're gonna be inspected under new stuff. Find out what building codes require if somebody's putting power to an old sign.
If you're adding power to anything under building code, you just gotta pull a permit.
Yeah,
So if that be the fact, then that's the way it needs to be worded in the code to where everybody knows it.
right, I really just want to reference people that, just because our code of ordinances says you don't need a permit, I don't want that to be true, I don't want that to be not true. If we run a power out something, you do need a permit, maybe not from here, I just hate to have that being.
Maybe you need to add the word building permit, not,
That would be from building codes, not
Yeah.
from zoning.
Right, so I'd like
Zoning
to,
would address whether they can put the sign there or not.
so if we went any sign or billboard with a sign or billboard area of less than 50 square feet shall be exempted from requiring permits unless, should be from requiring zoning and land use permits, which would be my office.
You're cleaning this up for next time, right?
Yeah. But I want to say it here, that just like you all ask council for stuff, I just want to stay at once, that way it doesn't come back again. Zoning and land use, but may need a building permit,
Parentheses, building permits may be required.
may be required.
Building or other permit may be required.
Gotcha.
From my experience, Zaxby, McDonald's, Wendy's, they all have standard size, standard signs with engineered foundations, this and that. That is all permitted underneath the building permit. Zoning, make sure it fits the requirements of size and this and that. But all that is inspected during the building process. So I guess I'm thinking, I don't wanna require a sign permit on new construction that's already been permitted. Or, multiple permits for signs, I guess is what I'm trying to prevent.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't wanna do any more than.
But if McDonald's says, I wanna put in a new sign, that's, you know, on this store that's been here for 10 years, then, yeah, that's gonna need a permit to run electric and do whatever. Make sure the foundation has been engineered, but they all have standard signs, standard engineering that, same with that set of plans,
Gotcha.
typically.
So I'll bring something different back to you next time. 32526, which is the very next sentence, billboard sign and submittal process. I haven't changed any language, the language is the same. I just put it all one place. That way it's got its own little title and some people don't have to go searching for it. So it's all the same information.
Same motion, if staff is telling the truth, so moved.
Yep, all in favor?
Alright.
All right, this is just another, under permits, I changed land use to zoning and flood review, because that's just purely a academic, or not academic, secretarial change. We have zoning with our current software, we have zoning and land use, and so, I'm sorry, zoning and flood review permits, we don't have land use permits, we use, when this was done, it's called Blueprints, was the name of the software. This one, it's zoning and land review, it's the same exact thing.
We're just renaming it.
Yep, it's renaming it.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
And the very last sentence, that's good to go back to the temporary sign thing, go back to a whole number of things. The very last sentence of the whole thing, signs placed within county right of ways may be removed and disposed of. If we don't want that in there, because we weren't happy with the previous language, if we haven't solidified with temporary language, doesn't have to go in there, could go in there, could not, it's for y'all.
Chairman, if we could just hold on this one until we do the review on the right-of-way language and setback language, that would be great for me.
All right, that agreeable with everyone?
Okay.
All right, look at that, y'all said yes to so much just there, feels good, right?
He was twisting my arm.
Listen to the attorneys.
All right, halfway done, we're almost there.
Okay. The last great item, discussion on Lake Residential Development District. Mr. Adams.
Sir, we were asked to look at Lake Residential District to apply a sliding scale, same way we have for the control-free district, for lot sizes. So what I've added in there is red is that now there's a quarter acre to less than a half acre, and I slid the setback requirements down as well.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept this changes?
What's the, why are we, wanting quarter acre lots?
Well, right now, the minimum lot size is a quarter acre in the control-free district, and that's not really what I didn't change that at all. The minimum lot size is quarter acre, so I just went from quarter to half and above. I don't know why we have quarter acre, that was whoever.
I move that I haven't studied this, to be quite honest. I move that we table this until next meeting, until we have a little chance to review it a little bit more.
This affects you a lot,
Yeah.
yeah, second that. Until he can
Further discussion?
give us his expertise.
So I'll table this, and you will tell me when you
All
want me to
in
bring it
favor?
back.
Aye.
Okay. Any old business? Any new business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Just real quick, over the weekend, former mayor of Seneca, Johnny Fields, passed away. He's been a real estate attorney for 20, 30 years around this area. Passed away suddenly. If you can keep his family, his wife and daughter, son, grandchildren in your prayers, be much obliged. Services are Saturday, don't know the time yet.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.